Street, 02914, requesting to address the council as a response to public comments made by council as well as personal attacks and mischaracterizations.
Good evening, members of the council, members that are here in the audience this evening, and the viewing public at home. I'm here tonight because for the past year, this city council has spent its time and sat at these meetings playing politics, playing to the cameras and blaming everyone else for every problem that's come before it. This city council and the school committee you control have torn this city apart instead of providing leadership. You've put our city in the newspapers and on the television nonstop, to the point that the media openly refers to us as a circus. Everyone seems to be at fault but you. First, it were the teachers that were the problem. Then the police. Then the fire. Then the General Assembly. Then, and most incredibly, the State Auditor General. Now, apparently, I'm the problem. You've continued to use scare tactics and repeated untruths about bankruptcy, closing community centers, libraries, and more. You make demeaning personal attacks and comments about people who simply disagree with you. While you've attacked and attacked, you have not practiced what you preach. You've created multiple high-paying jobs and spent enormous sums of taxpayer dollars on your lawyer friends. You've cost incredible sums of money for your personal benefits. You've built monumental parks and named them after your family. But the worst thing you've done is to repeatedly fail to tell the taxpayers the truth. I've lived here my whole life. The street where I live today is the street that I delivered newspapers on as a boy. I started a family here. I have a small business here. I'm not leaving anytime soon. I'm deeply invested here. But I'm here tonight to set the record straight and to address the continuous misleading comments and personal and political attacks that members of this council have made. I guess the biggest problem that I have is that I waited too long to come here and speak. There have been so many instances of hypocrisy over the past year that it would literally take me months to get through. So I'll talk about the most recent. Councilman Cusack, at the last council meeting, you mentioned that I want to take your pension system away. You objected to that, and you stated that the pension system is fine. Well, it's not fine. This is yet another example of you not being straight with the taxpayers. I'm stating publicly here tonight that I have no interest in taking your pension system away. Quite frankly, no one in their right mind would. The plan is seriously underfunded, and you conveniently failed to tell the public that there's a combined total of $60 million in unfunded liabilities. This has resulted from many years of not paying the city's fair share when Mr. Larisa was running the budget and you sat on this council. Why don't you tell the taxpayers, and you referenced no accounting gimmicks earlier tonight, that the city has been underfunding its pension contributions to the police and fire plan since 1997, and only contributing on average 23% of what you were supposed to. This has left the police and fire pension fund alone with a $28 million unfunded liability. But the best part of the pension story that Mr. Cusack never mentions and Mr. Larisa never seems to acknowledge is that you somehow find money to fund a supplemental retirement plan for senior city executives, the highest paid among all city employees. But you only talk about people at the bottom end of the ladder. Mr. Cusack, you often talk about financial sacrifice for city workers, but you never seem to get around to cutting that plan. Why don't you, Mr. Cusack, and you, Mr. Larisa, tell the taxpayers how this fits into your model for imminent municipal bankruptcy? And while we're speaking of pensions, we might as well talk about benefits. You, Mr. Cusack, are a hypocrite when you talk about cutting city worker benefits. Unfortunately, due to very unfortunate circumstances in your family, you've cost the city hundreds of thousands of dollars in benefits to the expense of the taxpayers. You cut others while sitting in this part-time job, and you take advantage of the same benefits you continue to demonize time after time after time. I'd call on you to lead by example and disclose how much you have cost the taxpayers of this city by taking those benefits. East Providence is not alone in these difficult financial times, but instead of generating solutions, you prefer to bully and blame others, while the dollars continue to be doled out to your attorney friends and second retirement plans. The Auditor General sent you a very clear letter. He told you that you're not going bankrupt. He's the financial expert. He's got more qualifications than anyone sitting at this council. He's a certified public accountant. He's a certified fraud examiner. He's the chairman of the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, which is the nation's largest body of CPAs, and he's the first government official to serve in this capacity since 1887. How can we hope for any type of economic development or recovery when you keep telling the world we're going bankrupt? Since 2008, in just 2 years, Rhode Island lost $450 million in anticipated revenues. The trend shows no sign of stopping, but you continue to complain you don't get enough state money. Since the year 2000, East Providence has received $393.2 million from the state of Rhode Island, with average annual increases of 2.5% per year. Additionally, which you conveniently failed to tell the public, is that you'll be getting an additional $1.5 million in new stimulus dollars that you don't have now. You also don't tell the public that cities and towns receive 60 cents of every tax dollar that's paid within the state of Rhode Island. 60 cents of every tax dollar that's paid within the state of Rhode Island goes to cities and towns, and you fail to tell the public that as well. Well, what do you do with the money you do have? You increase city spending by 4.9% a year versus 3.1% per year for the school department. You've increased your spending by 40% since 2001. The state has reduced its workforce by thousands in the last 5 years. You, to the contrary, have added employees at the highest pay levels. Why not a hiring freeze? Why not simply eliminating non-essential positions as people retire? I spoke to this council, to the public, to the press, at our January legislative breakfast. And I explicitly stated at the time, not just East Providence, but all cities and towns should not expect any revenue sharing. I stated that again publicly on the Senate floor on April 2nd of this year, that cities and towns needed to prepare for the elimination of revenue sharing. Yet East Providence still got money in revenue sharing that you still don't tell the public about. Councilman Cusack, at the last council meeting, you talked about state mandates. Well, I call your attention to Senate Bill 1012, which I sponsored, which would consolidate duplicate functions within municipal governments and school departments. We can't afford two of everything. We can't afford 39 little kingdoms all across this state. This is exactly what the Roger Williams study in the spring of 2008 told you. But what did you do? You buried the report. You're not willing to eliminate jobs that you put your friends in. You keep protecting your turf, and you keep protecting your power. Even the Republican mayor of the city of Warwick, Scott Avedisian, this summer, referring to Senate Bill 1012, called it, and I quote, absolutely the right idea. Well, I'd like to know, and I think the taxpayers deserve to know, what are your feelings? Not one member of this council, not one member of the city administration, not one member of the school department came to testify on the 3 separate occasions that this bill was heard publicly at the State House. Mr. Cusack, you called me the worst enemy of the East Providence taxpayer. Is that because of my efforts to consolidate and leave your political allies without your political appointments? Quite frankly, I take your comments as a compliment. Mr. Larisa, you sit there with that 10% sign, with the line through it, stating that you're not going to go with a 10% increase. You do this while knowing full well that there's a state law on the books, in effect right now, that doesn't even let you raise taxes by half that amount. But yet, you continue to mislead the public and scaring the taxpayers with your lies. Tonight, my message is simple. These politics and this rhetoric must stop. We need you to lead, and we don't need you to play politics with this city's future. We at the state level are facing even greater problems than you are, but we remain willing to work with you. But no one can work with you when all you want to do is put up signs like the 10%, which you know are inaccurate, and attack ordinary people. We all represent the same citizens. They need our help. They don't need circus tricks. If you sincerely want to do what's right by our city and its taxpayers, my door is open to you, contrary to what you may think. And I hope you take advantage of it. All the figures and the facts that I cited here tonight are all a matter of public record and are all cited. and they can be found at my website, www.dandepont.com. Thank you very much for your attention.